Hey folks, and welcome back. We're coming towards the end of this particular course, and this is really the final module before we do a wrap on the whole thing. So I really hope that you did get some enjoyment, and more importantly that you've learned something that fuels you and fires you to take the steps necessary to go forward with your intention to start your own QS consultancy. Now, for this final module, this will, again, much the same as the SOPs, not be particularly relevant from day one. But I want to set the scene because if you're going to be working strategically to grow your business at some point, you are going to need to employ people. Now, I've mentioned previously in another module that in the section around people that you need to have around you, I suggested that you need to go and find from day one people that you can trust, QSs, right? Freelance. But that's only going to get you so far, and it's only going to allow you to grow so far. And the problem with freelancers is that they, in my experience, they will only have an appetite for the job that pays the most at a particular point in time. So, in other words, they won't owe you any allegiance unless they are exceptional. Generally speaking, they're freelancers because they're driven by the need for flexibility and the maximum cash at a point in time. So they do have their uses, do not get me wrong, which is why I've suggested you need to build that artillery of potential recruits from day one to help you grow your business. But you'll get to a point where you definitely and should be thinking about employment because you've got that regular work, and if you're tracking correctly with your numbers that we spoke about earlier, and you have the support of an accountant that can externally and third-partily validate that you are safe to start employing, then this is what you should be doing, because then you have full control over the work of an individual that you have just employed or contracted to work within your organization. And by that, I mean, you are not going to manipulate them. You're going to treat them fairly. But what I mean by control over the work is that you don't have to suffer the same potential problems that you have with a freelancer, in that you pick up the phone and the person is already busy on another job and can't meet your expectations for another 2 weeks, yet you have a deliverable that is required in 5 days. So by having the employee, you have more control over the outcome because you have that person available and dedicated to work for you for the number of hours per week that you have contracted them for, if that makes sense. So, and as you grow and you look at all of this, then you fill the number of spots in the employment table according to the workload that you have coming. So I've just identified one, but your aim is to build as many employees as you can to grow and scale an efficient and profitable consultancy, not in the quickest amount of time. You need to be doing it logically and strategically. But if you are carrying your numbers correctly, you will know the right point in time to go and search for that right individual. So when you're in that position, how do you go about it? Well, you can go 2 ways, actually. You can let it be known in the market through your communication and your branding messaging when you go out and you create content and you talk about what you're doing and you talk about your business and you talk about the good things in your business in the social media area. And that's likely to be, more so LinkedIn than it is on Facebook and other like TikTok and those kind of things. But you can start to set the scene for the fact that you are going to be hiring. Now, this brings good and bad in doing that. In the bad is that you're going to get a lot of people who are just not qualified for the role, no matter how you pre-frame it. you're just going to get bombarded with people that, quite frankly, just don't read anything that you put out, and they will just respond with interested or here's my CV, and they are just not a right fit for the organization, period. No disrespect for those people that actually do that, but they're just not a fit. You can tell that just by reading their LinkedIn profile, and without even looking at a CV, you can work out that they are not a right fit. So but you may get instances where people reach out to you that are a fit. They're qualified to the standard that you expect. They're in the location that you want them to be in, because you want them to be in the office, or at least in close proximity to you, not the other side of the world. And they understand the local context of the service that you're providing, so they're able to, without friction and without additional education, be able to comply with the understanding of the local market in terms of what's required for documentation, like estimating and formats for estimates and that type of thing, rather than having to re-educate someone because they are from a completely different position on our wonderful planet. So that's one way. The second way, and a lot of businesses prefer this because it's just less time consuming, and I'll talk about the pros and cons in a minute, is just to engage a recruitment consultant. So I did not put a recruitment consultant on the people that you need on your site, because it's a 50-50 call. You may prefer to do the first route, where you start creating content around the fact that you are looking for an individual. LinkedIn, for example, allows you to place a banner on your profile, the circular photo, indicating that you're hiring. This is also another way of attracting income in. But just be prepared that you're going to get probably 97% of the people that are apply are just not in the right fit. But you will get potentially some candidates that are, and that's all free. Recruitment consultants, now, they're not really much different in my opinion, and I'm sorry if I upset any recruitment consultants, because as with anything else, there are good and bad ones. In my experience, the majority are bad, in that they are very, 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 very poor in communication. They may be the best recruitment agents in the world, but their communication skills, more particularly with candidates, suck. And I have the data on this, so I'm comfortable in making that statement. Now, downside of recruitment consultants, obviously it's going to cost you, but they do all the legwork, so they get the remuneration, and that's fair. We shouldn't really be moaning about that, because everybody is in business to make money, and recruitment consultants make their money by finding your X when you've asked for an X. And there lies another problem, because in my experience, when you ask for X, you just get a load of Y's. And I don't know why this is the case. That's my biggest beef with recruitment consultants, is that they do not listen. They are poor communicators, and they do not listen. And to some extent, I think that they just, search their database and pick sort of loosely the ones that they think are going to fit and just throw them out. And then you have to still do the legwork of going through the CVs. There are exceptions. In my career, which is 35 years in length right now, I have only ever come across one recruitment consultant that I have actually said, you really nailed it. You really know what you're doing. One. And I'm a fairly tolerant person. I'm a fairly open person, but I let facts speak for themselves, and I thoroughly recommend. But obviously that guy is only in one place, in one location, for one company, and can only do so much. But if that model could be replicated across every recruitment company, then I think there'll be a lot different space for everybody. But I'm not here to moan, so I'll move on. I'm just trying to give you a perspective of what to expect when you use recruitment consultants. But they will reduce a lot of the work, but you're still going to have to put in a lot of the work as well, and pay whatever the percentage is in your local area. That could range from 8 to 20%, depending on the position and your location and who you select as a recruiter. My preference is always to go for the organic, but it's a trade-off between how much time you actually spend in filtering through the hundreds of people that are going to apply, even though they know deep down that they have absolutely no chance because they don't match the criteria that you put out in the invitation. So it's a bit of a balance, and if you can find a good recruiter that you're willing to work with and the fees are reasonable, I would say go with a recruiter and let them do the legwork, and just be hard on your expectations, because let's face it, the fee that they are going to get is not normally small. So make sure that they do what they said they were going to do on the box, and do all the legwork, find you a candidate that conforms as best possible to the criteria that you give, and really, really, really jump up and down and threaten to fire them if they're not giving you what you want, because it's a saturated market, recruitment, and normally if a candidate is looking for a role, they're on multiple lists. So it's not like you go to one candidate and they've only got this candidate. The candidate is normally, if he's smart, he's across all different recruiters. So go with the one that is going to serve you the best. Okay, it's not always about price. It's going to be the one that serves you the best and causes you the least amount of grief in terms of time. If they can't serve you with what you've asked for, they are no good at what they do. Period. Be harsh. You're protecting your time. You're protecting your business. You're protecting your reputation, and make it clear that you're not going to tolerate working with an idiot. That's perfectly okay to do that, because it's your business, and so long as you are crystal clear, and you need to be, on what your requirements are, make sure they do what they said they were going to do. Period. No exceptions. It's not a case, they may say, well, you're hard to deal with. Well, if you've got that attitude, then you shouldn't be dealing with clients at all, should you? You should take the feedback and you should work with it, and you should try and improve, not just say that I'm difficult to work with. And this is a problem with a lot of recruiters, in that they just think that they can shortcut to get their fee. Well, wouldn't it be lovely if we could all do that? Just shortcut the process to get our fee. The real world doesn't work like that. So just a word of caution. So the pluses of a recruiter is that they do all the legwork for you. They find, in theory, the right person. The downside is that you really have to get prescriptive. You have to be harsh. You have to be hard, and be willing to sack them and get another person on board if they're not willing to give you what they want, or what you want rather. And for the organic, the downside is clearly time. You're going to have to go through and be willing to spend a lot of time with a lot of people that are not understanding what you want because they haven't read it. That's just a fact. But you can find some gems that will not incur you in a heavy percentage for the first year. Another downside I've found, and I'm sorry that this has to be said, but you'll often find that recruiters, once they've placed a candidate, they are sniffing around that candidate within 2 to 3 months, asking them if they are happy, because they have another role that they are trying to sell that candidate into. So whichever recruiter you are going to, make sure you have a term and condition into the fee structure that if that candidate leaves within the first 12 months, you expect a proportionate return of your fee back. They will not like that, and some may say it's not possible. Fine, don't work with them, because you don't want to be paying 100% for someone that is only going to sit with you for 3 months because someone has coerced them out of your organization into another job, because just be aware that these kind of tactics are prevalent. Now, how do you ensure, once you've employed, that you keep a person engaged? Look, this is simple. Just make sure that they have enough work, interest in work, and always be interested in them. Okay, always ask, always make sure that they are okay. Definitely check in on their mental health. This is a big issue in construction these days. And just be caring, okay? Don't be dictatorial. Don't force things. And I've always found that when it comes to working with employees, they're humans at the end of the day. They're like you and I. You know, they have needs, they have wants, they have emotions, they have families. When I'm aware that a staff member has something like a function at a school, like a sports day or something like that, I'll just give them the time. I'll just say, look, I've heard that your son, your daughter is running in the egg and spoon race or whatever it is, or has a field and track day or a football match. Why are you not going? And then they say, oh, I've got all this work to do, and then you just give it to them. You say, well, look, I really appreciate that, and I appreciate your dedication, but I want you not to forget important things like your family, and please go and watch. And if it takes you all day, then so be it. But if you want to come back to the office when you've finished and you've watched it and everything's all okay, then you're more than welcome to do that. But I'm giving you permission to be with your family, okay? And you'll get that. Guarantee you'll get that work back threefold. But that's not the point. The point is that you want them to feel that you are not just an employee, but you're a member, or they're a member of your family as well, your work family, your company family, and that you are looking after them. When you do that and they realize that you are doing that, 9 times out of 10, you'll never please everyone, guaranteed, but 9 times out of 10, then that employee will give you all, and they will become incredibly loyal, and they will stay with you a long time if you treat them well. And that's what you want. You want to build a culture of that type of environment where people want to come to work. Okay? So, converse of that is that you're always going to get the odd one that wants to manipulate to their advantage at every occasion. And sometimes you may have to make a difficult decision to let that person go. So, hence jumping back to people that you need to have on your list and the people to go to in case. If you remember, when we looked at those people that you need to have on your side, one of them was a lawyer. Now, that may be a human resources advisor instead of a lawyer. I don't know. But it's someone who is specialized in employment law in your location. Because you do not want to fire someone without ensuring that you have complied fully and documented fully the reason why you are executing the redundancy or the termination or whatever the applicable language is in your location. You want to make sure that you are on the right side of the law. This doesn't preclude you from further actions of the employee, but it does strengthen your case if you have done everything legitimately, including if it applies in your location to do performance review, corrections, and all necessary steps before you complete the termination. Make sure, in conjunction with your advisor, that you do everything necessary to comply with the law. Okay. Generally speaking, employment tribunals or employment cases are heavily weighted on the employee, But if you do everything correctly and you have a logical explanation as to why you have done it, and you can prove that the employee is the unreasonable equation in the situation, then you will likely succeed. Okay, so both sides of the equation. Be prepared that when you employ, there is a ugly side to it, but most of the time there is a very, very pleasant side to it, and that's what you need to focus on. But be prepared for the unpleasantness, because it probably will happen. I don't think there's any company out there that will be able to avoid it, because it's the type of person that you're dealing with rather than anything else. Obviously, if you've contributed to it, then you take full responsibility and you own that. But if you haven't, then you still need to be able to deal with it. And just be always cognizant of rules and procedures around employment. Document all of that within your SOPs. Make sure that you have fair and equitable processes for your employees, and take advice on it. Take advice in your specific location about things that you can do. Considerations also would be to offer packages to your employees around like mental health. Normally there's organizations that you can sign up to. Some charge, some don't, that allow an employee to call a hotline if they are not feeling like in the best of ways for whatever reason, and it's something that they feel they do not want to share with you or other members in employment, but they want to share it with somebody because it's serious enough for them to be concerned about. So that's something nice that you can offer. It shows a caring and empathetic value for the company, and I think it's just a good thing to do from an HR perspective. And then you can offer other things like health packages and that type of thing to reinforce that you're a caring in employer. You want to be aiming for your company eventually to be the place that people want to come to, not the place that people want to avoid. I've seen that when people that I've known personally, they've been looking for jobs, and then the recruiter tells them who the company is, and they're no, I'm never working for that, because they've generated a very bad reputation for themselves. You want to avoid being in that space for sure, because you'll find it hard to get the right quality of employee, which is really the important aspect. So with all that said, I'm going to wrap that up, and the next module will just be an overall wrap up of everything, and a final thank you for partaking in this course. And also I'm just going to ask a favor of you, which I will document in the next video. But I'll wrap it up now, and as always, thank you for watching. I really appreciate your attention to all of this, and I wish you every success in you building your consultancy. That's what I wish for you. That's why I'm here, to empower you to do that, and I will see you in the final one.